This episode is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. For more information on increasing your cash flow, becoming your own money manager, and to schedule your complimentary personal finance strategy, contact the Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463. Elite Dental Wellness. At Elite Dental Wellness, Dr. Ashandra Batiste understands that one of the biggest obstacles is dental fear. The vision at Elite Dental Wellness is to ensure every patient is treated with respect, ultimate care, patience, and love. Call us today to make an appointment at area code 713-789-8680. Looking to advertise? Join the Sphere's vast demographic reach of thousands of people all over the world. Send an email today to advertise@thesphere.tv or call us at area code 832-772-7789.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another amazing edition of Society Now. I'm your host, Kira Laws, and you can follow me on Instagram at The Modern Day Cindy. That's Cindy with an I, not a Y. And we're here today to give you some more interesting content that talks about inspiring and invoking discussion, giving you that energy. Now let me stop. But we're here to give you some real good dialogue about some of the things that are happening in our society today. And I have my handsome co-host with me today.
Yo, what's going on? It's your man, Kaylin Laws, aka Senior Wapo. You know where you are tuned in to this evening. Society Now. Do me a quick favor. Go to Instagram. Go to the Twitter sphere. Go to my website. All of them. Senior Wapo 713. That's SENORGUAP 0713. Now forgive me. I may sound a little lispy today, but I'm going to slow down and get these words out correctly. Had a little dental work, but we pushing through because we got to make sure we give you the news and information that you can use about what's going on around this world. Ain't that right, Kira?
Absolutely. Now, it's a lot of things that's happening. I don't know. Because we're here in the H, I got to start off with talking about H-Town.
Slow it down.
Slow down for H-Town. Screwed up and everything.
Slow and throw it, as Jeremy Foster says.
Slowed and throw. You don't know about that. Well, Houston has now made it to GQ. Did you know about that? Did you hear about it?
Yeah, I did.
I heard that Houston is now one of the places that's running the South right now. Now, I always thought Houston was a contender.
Facts.
Because, people, quiet as it kept, Houston has fire, but it made it to GQ. Flames. Made it to GQ as the Southern standard.
Yeah,
what do you think about that?
I think it's really dope, and I think it's apropos, and it's
a long time coming.
It's a long time coming. We've been at the forefront of industry for a long time, right? So Houston has the second most. For those of you who are listening who are not from Houston, and maybe you are from here or live here and do not know, let me give you a little bit of facts. I did some, the work I did back in the day with some organizations. I had to get all these facts and write these grants. So I have all of this stuff stuck in my head. So Houston is second in the country in terms of the number of Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered here, right?
Okay.
Only behind New York. It's the third largest city budget in the country, behind, of course, LA and New York.
Okay.
Right? We have the highest migration rate.
Because everybody wants to be in the
H. Everybody's coming to the H, especially from California. Like we have the largest migration from California, and we have some in terms of the expensive, what they call the expensive cities or the high-end cities. We're one of the most affordable with our cost of living.
Yeah.
Texas has no property tax. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the culture. You look at hip hop, right? The screwed up movement, right? It was born out of here, right? With DJ Screw, God bless the dead. We have one of the second largest or third largest theater district in the country, right? The third largest museum district in the country.
Mm-hmm.
The arts, we get every off-Broadway play. They stop here in Houston for a number of days, sometimes even weeks.
Yeah.
We have one of the top rated ballets in the country with the Houston Ballet.
I mean, Houston is fire. I mean, so like he was saying,
there's so much here,
yeah,
you know, that's noteworthy. But you know, people think with that we all like this in Texas.
And let me tell you, Texas is a state with many cities. So when
Please.
you tell people
Talk
you're
to the
coming,
people about what you're about to say.
listen, when you tell people you're coming here, let them know what city you're going to, because people say I'm going to Texas as if it's just one big city.
It's so interesting.
Texas is a city. Is Texas a state with many cities, and every city in Texas has its own personality.
It does.
Houston is not a Waco. It's not a Austin. It's not a Dallas. It's not Abilene or anything else like that. Houston is Houston, and it has earned the right to be the number one spot for Southern cool.
It's so interesting because, you know, Kira's family is from New York. And a lot of them are still there. Most of them are still in New York, but then you have quite a few New Yorkers who now live in Atlanta who've been in there a few years, and they never say I'm going to Houston. They say I'm going to Texas.
I'm like, you do realize
my frat brothers that are from the East. Shout out to the Sigmas, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, founded on the campus of Howard University, January 9th, 1914. You know what I'm saying?
What is
one
happening?
Beautiful day.
Oh my!
So, but you know, all of my frat brothers, the ones that I know that are from the East Coast, right? They say, "Yeah, I'm coming to visit you in Texas." I'm like, "Bro,
it's so much more than Texas."
Like,
I mean, Texas is the state that Houston is located in, but I'm telling you, please don't get confused. There's so much more to Texas than just what you see on certain shows. Houston is not the same as any other city,
and even in the cities, right? Even in Dallas, or even in Houston, even in San Antonio, even Austin, which are the four big ones. Yes, you have that stereotypical Texas element, but we're not walking around here. Everybody not walking around here in cowboy boots with tumbleweed.
But I will tell you this though,
tumbleweeds and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
There's opportunity here because we do have, you know, opportunity for land, for home ownership, for entrepreneurship. And you mentioned this, but just to clarify, Texas doesn't have state tax. We have property taxes, but we don't have state taxes. I think you said property.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
I said it wrong.
So we don't have state taxes, which makes it also very attractive for persons who migrate here. So, shout out to Houston for just being amazing, for sure. I mean, I was really proud to see that. So Bun was in the article. There's a lot of people.
Shout out to Trill OG. Also, Turkey Leg Hut. Shout out to the Turkey Leg Hut because they were in.
Come on, Turkey Leg Hut.
They were in GQ as well, and it's really, really dope. Shout out to Lynn and his beautiful wife. Those are some classmates of mine from Texas Southern University. You know, just people doing really big
great
things.
Food here.
Oh my God! And the Turkey Leg Hut has. They have turkey legs that are the size of my arm. I'm 6'4", 230 pounds. They have turkey legs that are the size of my forearm. No exaggeration.
You come to Houston when you're not on a diet.
Facts.
Because you don't come here to ruin your diet.
Shout out to Janae Anderson. Every time she says she comes here, she gets messed up off of her eating plan.
So she got a whole meal plan that she don't want to adhere to. But it's okay. That's what happens when you live here, okay? But anyways, it's a lifestyle. Houston is a lifestyle. It's a mindset. Okay, so now what else is going on in the world? So I wanted to talk about this because I thought this was amazing, right? So recently, there was some discussion, or actually made news in Florida. A young student was denied their lunch because they were 15 cent short of having the money necessary in their card to pay lunch. So what they did was they took the lunch away and they threw it in the trash, y'all. Wasteful. And I'm like, you know, and I know that the workers have to do their job, but y'all couldn't come up with the pennies to give that kid a lunch. So y'all just, I mean, how hardcore was that? And I'm curious, and I'm kind of like, where's the compassion, right? I understand that you can't give everybody the lunch, right? But 15 cent, y'all couldn't come together with 15 cent and give that kid its lunch. So this is a follow-up on that story. So T.I. heard about it, and he was like, that ain't cool, of course, because he's been very active. And like I said, hip-hop is becoming very active in community. So shout out to all of hip-hop for being active. And he decided to go pay for that student's lunch for the rest of the year. So shout out to T.I. for doing big things. And he took it outside of his hood and brought it to somebody else's hood. So shout out, because he didn't have to do that. But being denied lunch because you can't afford it. I mean, you don't, as kids, you don't choose to be here. Well, none of us chose to be here, but you don't definitely choose that situation, the economic situation that your family is in. And so that was just really sad, but I'm so glad that somebody saw it and decided to contribute. And anybody could have did this, because how much is lunch? Right. If everybody just took 1 week to pay for lunch, I mean, spend that much on one day of food, $20. $20 will cover a kid food for probably 2 weeks because lunch is not expensive.
It's not. Maybe on the high end $2 a day.
Yeah.
And an expanded view of this, is shout out to all of our leaders in our community, right, in the African American and people of color community. Shout out to them for taking an initiative and for growth, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing, T.I. he'll tell you he came from the SWAT, Southwest Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? He came from Zone 4. He's been as well documented his legal troubles and his legal background, but he's a man of action and a man of community. You know what I'm saying? His hashtag now is us or else in terms of everything he's doing politically and things of that nature. Shout out to folks like Diddy. He's developed a charter school system, developing a system, but it's a charter school out in New York. And of course, the things that LeBron, with the amazing thing that he's doing right now with the school that he's been able to develop and partner with, and all these other stars who are growing and showing growth and giving back and creating initiative. Steve Harvey has the mentoring initiative. It's just so much.
And I think it's like a conversation about, you said T.I. says us or else. And it's more like, I hate to say it like this, but it really is a conversation about self-preservation. Like, this is where we are.
Absolutely.
Like, when we, and not even like we're being hunted, because I don't like how that sounds. It really does draw a lot. It makes me feel some type of way. But it's more of we have to take care of one another and show that, as a community, that we're not savage or beast-like people. Like, we are actually very much mindful about our communities. We love our communities. We love the people that live in our communities. We're not all the same, but we're willing to reach back and give what we have to make everything better. So I think that's an ongoing conversation, because there is so much misunderstanding about us because we are different, and we are different because we look so different, right?
Absolutely.
And that a lot of times creates fear with a lot of people. Like, when you don't look like them, they don't know how to connect with you. So that's really a conversation to have on a lot of different levels.
It is. It absolutely is an amazing conversation that we need to have. I just love having conversations.
Absolutely.
I love having conversations with people regarding everything that's going on, especially how to help them be their better selves.
Let's talk about how to help me be a better version of myself.
Well, I can help you. Let me tell you how. Because I'm going to help you with your spending habits.
Okay.
Well, no, but you have good ones though.
I was like, I'm pretty.
Don't leave me hanging. You got good ones,
I'm
but maybe you
all
don't.
Right.
But maybe you don't have good spending habits.
But you can always get better.
Yeah, maybe you need to get your financial house in order. Well, this portion of the show is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. Did you know that only 4 states in the U.S. offer financial education? 33% or more than 77 million Americans don't pay their bills on time. 39% of Americans carry credit card debt from month to month, and 39% of adults say they do not have enough savings. Don't become one of these statistics. Let Houston Housewives of Finance advise you on increasing your cash flow and becoming your own money manager by scheduling your complimentary personal financial strategy. Contact Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463 or email us at info@houstonhousewivesoffinance.com. Ask how you can participate in a complimentary personal financial literacy workshop near you. Remember, complimentary means free. Houston Housewives of Finance are the new faces of the new age of financial services.
I love it. I mean, like I said, you can always become a better version of yourself. So
Absolutely.
Don't ever just settle on I'm good at that. Become great at it, right? So I'm pretty good at spending and saving, but I want to become great. I want to be amazing at it, right? Because I really want to be able to help other people besides myself. Now let's get into this next article, and I think this goes to being a better version of yourself, right? Simone Biles.
Come on.
She made a statement. It was a quote actually on somebody's Instagram page that I follow, and she says, "I'm not the next Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps. I'm the first Simone Biles." And I wanted to talk about that quote because I think it's so interesting how the society we have really does emphasize, or it looks like we're seeing so many images of other people, and we constantly are in this comparison zone, or that makes us sometimes it can make you very aware of what you don't have or what you need to have more of, and on and on and on. And for her to make that statement at such a young age, I feel like she's very self-aware, and she also knows what things could hinder her from becoming the greatest in whatever she's doing, right? The conversation to me about becoming just mentally strong in a society where we have so much access to see what everyone else has going on. You see what I'm saying? Like when you actually see this one thing, like 10, 20 years ago, we heard about people doing great things, but we didn't have the access to see what everybody was doing. But now we can see it. And when you're able to see all of that, it could actually hamper your self perception.
No, for sure.
Absolutely.
Especially when you have platform, especially when you have influence, right? It as large as Simone. You got to remember where her influence lies, right? It obviously is in athletics, right? It's obviously it's in the African American community. She has a beautiful story of being adopted and shout out to her being from the Houston. Again, we got Simone Biles. This is another reason I want to say that we were in GQ because we got Simone Biles out of Spring, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston on the north side. But her platform is so huge, and then it has been expanded even further, Kira, with with everything happening with the doctor, right? And so her platform is huge. She was outspoken about that. She was very upfront in a leader, so to speak, in helping get him pay for what he's done over the years. And so her platform is huge. And when you try to equalize one person's platform from another, you have to be careful. You have to walk that fine line, because you can make it look like make it seem like you're making it like a copycat, right? Or there's no identity within it. And I think that especially in this day where there's so much girl power going on right now, and I love it, I absolutely love it. You need to make sure that the girl power is keeping going, because she has her own story, she has her own voice, she has her own legacy, she has her own audience and influence. And by her saying that she's the first Simone Biles, to say, listen, I'm here to stay. And I want to talk to everybody out there. You have a story, you have value, you have something to offer and to help people. You're not the next someone else. You are the first who you are. God created you, in his image and his likeness, with a will and a purpose and things to get accomplished in this earth that only you are to do, and only you are to experience, and only you are to impart. So make sure that you understand and know that you are the first you. If your name is Mary, you are the first Mary. If your name is Latrice, you are the first Latrice. If your name is Allison, you are the first Allison. If whoever you are that person, just like she's the first Simone Biles. You're operating in that gift and in your lane and for a purpose. And I think she understands, she being Simone Biles, understands that purpose, and that she has to operate in that lane as well. I tell you, man, it's a beautiful story that I'm so excited to hear about. It's so much fun because as an athlete, right, as a former athlete, we get into, and somebody who loves sports, we get into comparisons all the time. Kobe think he Jordan, or you know what I'm saying? Like we get into all of these comparisons, and it's unfair to both, because both players are great, right? Both players are great on the field, on the court, in the arena, right? But also it's unfair for an expanded view, which I think is what Simone is saying, to try to make me be like the next person. Don't compare us. It
creates unnecessary, undue burdens and hardships on people. And I think that it takes a lot of, like I said, you have to be very self-aware. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you beat yourself up about all the things you aren't, because you're not that particular person. But you have to understand that particular person had their road. They had to get there on their own, their way, whatever that looks like for them. And so putting yourself in a position to try to emulate that can only take you so far, right?
Yeah.
I think there's lessons to be learned in everybody's journey, like high level, right? Discipline, right?
Facts.
High level, hard work. You're the ethics, you're things like that. But trying to compare persons, regardless of if they're athletes or not, or individuals, entertainers, designers, attorneys, whatever, trying to compare them and make them fit a specific standard can create unnecessary hardship. So I just feel like, I just wanted to talk about that, because when I saw that quote, I was like, man, that's real. That quote is really real. Like, it's because this is where we are, 2018 and beyond. We're in a time where we can see everything, and that can be a distraction to purpose. And anytime that you get in a situation where you're trying to pursue your purpose, you have to almost walk around with blinders on, almost be like a horse, You can't ever think about that. Horses aren't able to look to the left or the right. They only can focus on the track. When you think about it from that perspective, you have to be horse-like and focus on your destiny and not necessarily what's going on around you.
Yeah. And we want to talk to people that are always around us, right? And that's our Facebook Live audience. And we ask that you subscribe to our show on all the major platforms, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher. Review our show in iTunes with constructive feedback. And share this Facebook Live post and the entire show with your family and friends. Donate to our mission to bring enriched and inspiring content each and every week. You can donate at www.thesphere.tv/donate. Shout out to T. Angela, what up? Trees, appreciate you.
Trees.
Heather,
Hey,
from
Heather.
Greenville. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you share this post and subscribe so you can get the rest of the show once it goes live. Thank you all so much. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
What else we got going, Kira?
Okay, so let me tell you, it's so many other things that's happening, right? So I saw this week, and I just thought this was super interesting about, the New York senator who actually was campaigning in his area, in his district, and someone called the police on him. This particular person called the police on him. He is now pushing for a bill to be passed that persons who call 911 falsely get criminalized.
Right.
I think that's an amazing bill, because we have to understand, and this is not a yes, Black Lives Matter. I do say everybody's life matter, but Black lives really do matter. This is serious. When you start calling the police on groups of people based upon your perception of them because of their skin, you are creating a hostile situation. I'm so sorry. You have to understand, if we didn't have the documented examples of persons being, sought after by policemen based upon someone else's call and then potentially dying or getting shot, it just doesn't. We have to use sense, people. I mean, we really need to use sense. You can't just call the police just because you don't agree with someone. I think that we have to have some type of in between, and I think it was really smart for him, because I'm like, as a politician, this is what you should be using your laws for. You should be using your laws to actually regulate the communities that we're in. And that's a conversation, right? Because this is how people get voted in. This is why the midterm elections are important. He was campaigning in his area about, I'm sure, fundamental change. And here you just put something else on his books that he need to fundamentally change. These things this has to stop.
It does. He created a movement called #campaigning while black.
Yeah.
Right. He was in his district. He was amongst his people. Mind you, he's the incumbent. So he's already in the seat. He already is seated in this seat. He's been here. The community knows him. Obviously, somebody didn't know him. Everybody doesn't know their representatives, right? But it's very interesting in that with this, that he has to go through these routes and go to these methods. I agree with you that it's more than necessary. Where it becomes interesting and even a bit uphill battle and challenging is how procedurally, how is this going to happen, right? So you got to think about it. The police are still going to have to be called, right? Then somebody's probably going to have to get arrested, and then at that point there has to be an investigation launched, which means they got to create some sort of, they got to find the people to do that and pull them out of their day, et cetera. You know what I'm saying, et cetera, et cetera. So it can be potentially an uphill battle because of how to get this done, but I think it's definitely a necessary thing to at least establish and to get in the media and in the press and to get out that, listen, we're not standing for this. We're not going to sit for it. We're not going to tolerate it. We're really going to make sure that we're stuck on us getting the rights that we need to get and not being viewed as a public threat and public enemy, because that's what's been happening. And
I think it's like I said, I think, like you said, it is going to be it could potentially be an uphill battle. I'm going to use my words carefully. It could potentially be an uphill battle, but it's going to be a necessary one. Anytime we need to change, we've had to have these conversations about what's necessary to make it happen. And of course, yes, like you said, you might need more resources, human resources. It might even need some monies toward that. But this is the way we create all divisions. This is the way we created 911 in the first place.
Yeah.
There was a need for people to get immediate help. So at the same way, there's a need for people who are being targeted by this thing that was supposed to be used a certain way to get immediate help or relief from or deter calls that aren't necessarily valid. So
Right.
I mean, there's always going to be a negative conversation that can be had on both sides of the spectrum. But we have to take care of everyone in the community, not just those who seem to look or feel like they're being disenfranchised and all that stuff. But we have to take care of everybody. It has to be a balance.
It does have to be a balance. I'm super happy about this. About this brother that's doing campaigning while black.
I love it. Okay, now let's talk about California. Now
Let's do it.
this, I think I've been to California a few times. I haven't lived there, but I've visited, right?
California
Right.
love.
And the places that I've been, for the most part, I can say I enjoyed myself. But I was very, shocked to find out about what California's been doing. California is always experiencing wildfires. Well, they're using prisoners to combat the wildfires and only paying them $2 a day. And these people are on the front line. Now, I do know historically there's always been a shortage of firemen, right? First responders. $1. So it was $2, $1. I don't know. So I don't know.
An hour, yeah.
Yeah. But either way, it's not a lot, right? For them to be, number one, they're already incarcerated. And number two, that they don't necessarily, I'm not going to say they don't get the best medical care, because I've never been in the care of a medical person in jail.
Traditionally, they don't.
But
it's documented.
But $1 or $2 either way is just not enough
For
to
putting
take
your life
care
on the line.
to put your life on the line, and the potential health issues you might have from smoke inhalation, burns, things like that. I'm like, okay, I understand that you feel like these people, if they wasn't in a situation that they wouldn't be locked up anyway, then they wouldn't have. But I don't know if there's an option out there for them to opt out. I'm sure that they're like, well, if you want to make some money, you can do this. But I just feel like it's inhumane.
Yeah, it's
just not. I'm like, I know that like they got
It's the 14th
commissary
Amendment, man.
and
13th
stuff don't
Amendment.
cost a lot in jail, but I'm like, but $1 or $2 a day is just not right. And I mean, I don't even know how to. I can't say I don't care what people do, but it just seems like, how do you decide who you advertise this
Right.
job to? Like,
Right.
does everybody in the prison get the same advertisement? Like, okay, well, we're gonna take all the people who have been
You gotta
accused of blank, blank, and blank, who were not sentenced to blank, and we put them out there and pay them.
So this is another, again, I love expanding the view, right? Another thing that I think about when you look at this is you have these guys getting this experience fighting fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they get out and they're not able to be hired at a fire station. Some of them. Now, every city is different, every county is different where the firemen are, but some of them, because it's a security sensitive position, because people's lives are on the line, depending upon what their offense was, they're not eligible. They won't be hired. But when they're inside, they can put their life on the line, and for nothing. You see what I'm saying? I got this great experience.
But they won't pass a background check.
I got this great experience. I'm fighting fire, so more than likely, they train me in CPR because the person next to me, it might need me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
More than likely, they've trained me in some sort of life-saving measure, so I have this experience. But now when I get out, I've done my time. I pay my debt to society. I've done my 5 years or whatever have you. But I have 3 years of experience of fighting fires. Now let me go out and make a good living and do great for myself. Now I can't get hired. That's where it becomes problematic for me too, because it's not like they were sitting on their behind in jail doing nothing.
So to me, what you're saying is, and I agree with this, if this is where we're going with this conversation, there should be a pathway.
Absolutely. When they do stuff like this.
To employment,
yeah,
that allows them to use their experience to, further, to have a healthy lifestyle outside of, and we can continue this conversation, but this portion of our show, let's talk about this first, is brought to you by Elite Dental Wellness. I love it. Teeth, hey. At Elite Dental Wellness, our vision is to create a welcoming practice that will offer exceptional dental care and a lifetime of dental wellness. We are committed to the finest possible oral care and the overall health and well-being of our patients. At Elite Dental Wellness is built on a foundation of integrity, expertise, and service. Through our commitment to modern dentistry, continuing education, and a friendly atmosphere, we strive to make our patients feel like they are part of our family. Dentistry can be scary, daunting, and uncomfortable. Dr. Batiste and her team work tirelessly to ensure your comfort. Make your appointment today with Dr. Chandra Batiste at Elite Dental Wellness by calling 713-789-8680. Again, the number is 713-789-8680. Elite Dental Wellness. Bling. But yeah, so I jump back into this.
Yeah.
I just want to just say this real quickly. I really feel like just because of the line of work, like they were saying that, I was rereading the article saying that they get $2 a day and $1 if they fight an active fire. So that probably is amount to $3, right? It's just a lot, you know what I mean? And like you said, that there should be a pathway to gainful employment once you have sacrifice like that. There should be something,
seriously,
even if it's in not necessarily a mid-wage job, just a pathway to gainful employment that allows you to show that you are rehabilitated. I think because
you have value.
That you have value, because when you study criminal law, they talk about, or criminal procedure, they talk about ideally you're on that path for deterrence, rehabilitation, and of course some punishment. But that the deterrence and rehabilitation, that rehabilitation part a lot of times is missing out of the criminal justice system, because we don't have enough people pushing for the rehab to actually have
talk about it,
effects outside of the jail, where they can feel like they're now welcome back into society, because you're allowing them to be hired.
Right. Because
we have systems that won't hire persons that have been criminalized and served in time in jail. So it's really a lot. It really is a lot. Now let's talk about this, and I think you're gonna love this. This is like real kind of conversation, because you're like a city searcher. So we're talking about rent. So in New York, y'all know New York is, I know New York is known for rent control, and that means that if you have an apartment in New York and you have that apartment and you've been paying $4 or $5 forever, as long as that apartment stays under your name or in your family, something like that, you can keep that same rent. As soon as you let go of that apartment, it automatically goes to whatever the market rate is. So it can go from $4 to $500 a month, or to $1,500 a month. But that's really a great situation to be in, rent control. Here, and like most cities, rent can fluctuate every time you renew your lease, right?
Right.
So when you think about that, talk more about the rent in cities.
So there's this thing in expensive cities, rents are falling for the rich, for the high-end properties, but they're rising on the low-end properties and for the poor. It's very interesting, right? We see time and time again throughout history that financially, the wealthy and those who make over a certain threshold receive more breaks, receive more incentives, receive more discounts, receive more, etc. Blowback, kickbacks, whatever. They receive more in terms of these things monetarily than those who do not meet that income threshold, right? And so there was an article in the Washington Post that I found, and I'm gonna read a couple of things here just so you can get it. It's very, very dense, but it says nationally the pace of rent increases is beginning to slow down, with the average rent in at least 6 cities falling since last summer, according to Zillow. But the decline is being driven primarily by decreasing prices for high-end rentals, right? The high-end rentals are decreasing prices. People in low-end housing, the apartments and other units that house working-class residents are still paying more than ever. So those people who are paying the mid-level rents are paying more than ever, while the decline is coming on the high-end rentals. Since last summer, rents have fallen for the highest earners, while increasing for the poorest in San Francisco, Atlanta, Nashville, Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver, Pittsburgh, Washington, Portland, among other cities in several other metro areas, including the LA area, Vegas area, here in Houston and Miami. Rents have risen for the poor and the rich alike. So you have certain areas where rent is just going crazy for everybody. Like here in Houston, Kira and I drive around the city quite significantly, and we just off of a hobby, and habit. I tried to make that go together and said hobbit. We'll look at these rental prices, and we often say, who's paying that? Where they getting this money for? Like, where they getting these $3,800 for this 2-bedroom apartment downtown? Like, where they getting this $5,000, $7,000 for this pen? I mean, it is a penthouse, but it's $7,000. You know what $7,000 is for a mortgage? That's like a $900,000, $800,000 a home you can have, right? And so we're like, what's happening? And so what's happening is these rent rates are, these luxury apartments are being built all over the country. It's these luxury rentals, it's these mid-rises, it's these high-rises that are skyrocketing in urban areas, while the affordable rentals aren't being built at all. And so supply and demand, right? Once nobody's renting them, the prices go down for the high-end rentals, but they still don't go down to the threshold that meets the middle class, the working class families, like many of our listeners and viewers are. So it's something to watch, because it creates a bit of a conundrum, so to speak, because some economists are saying that this with these high-end rentals not being rented, the prices are going to keep dropping, but it just hasn't happened yet, right? It just hasn't. But additionally, the more affordable prices, apartments, they're just not, people aren't leaving them. Number one, they stay in them forever because they're affordable, right? But number two, they're not being built. These are not the ones being built. The apartments, like I'm Houston, for example, or Texas, period. The apartments that are affordable, so for a 2-bedroom, $1,500, so it's considered affordable. That's about market rate right now. It's high for some, but for a decent apartment, anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500. Those apartments aren't being built. It's the ones that are the 2-bedroom that are $2,500 that are being built, right? Or $4,000 more a month. And so this is what you have going on with this article. So it's just something to watch, man. For all of these, for the Camden, it's something to watch for the Greystar communities. It's something to watch for all these organizations and these companies as they continue to build their brand and to build their edifices. And guess what? We want to talk to you brand owners who are trying to build your brand and build your company. Maybe you're looking for a place to advertise. Well, you can get it done right here at the Sphere, because we're sponsoring this portion of the show. Are you starting your business and looking for a place to advertise? Do you have need to reach out to thousands of people across the world to build your brand or sell your product? If so, get your product placement and advertising needs handled right here at the Sphere. We offer a wide variety of content delivery platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Plus, we have a vast demographic reach across the United States, as well as the modern countries across the globe. Our enriched content and inspiring dialogue, coupled with your strategic ad, is surely to hit the mark every time. Call us today at area code 832-772-7789, or send an email over to advertise@thesphere.tv. So, Poorer city residents have experienced significant rent increases over the past several years. In Portland, average rents for the poor have risen about from $1,100 to $1,600, or about more than 40% since 2011.
And so what makes this an issue for me, and we're going to talk about it offline some more, but if people already are struggling to survive, right, ends meet, but they have to have a place to live, right? And we don't have enough shelters in most cities to, cover the amount of people who would not be able to live otherwise. You're putting them in a situation where you're actually, we can probably jump to this next, encouraging a situation where people have to live check to check because they need a place to live. And a lot of times these persons don't qualify to get homes because they don't have the 20% necessary for down payments. Most people don't have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000.
The requisite 20% down.
Yeah, because they don't, they have been trying to make a living, right? And so
paying a mortgage note for an apartment.
For apartment, so it kind of makes it very much a didactic situation, right? Because it really is frustrating. So when you look at it from that perspective, how do you reverse issues where we're talking about paying equity and things like that, and then you try to make it such that people can live nicely with having these apartments that are providing all the amenities they need, but it just costs too much. And I think that goes to something that you shared with me, was another article you told me about, that this whole universal basic income trial that they're having in California.
So universal basic income is this idea that's been around, actually, from doing my research, a few centuries, right? Some I've seen as high as 500 years. And what it is this idea that government pays every citizen. Now, it's not a living wage, right? They ain't finna drop you, $1,500 a month.
It's like a supplemental income.
Yeah, but it's supplemental income, and so look at it in terms of you getting an inheritance, right?
Okay.
And so the government has these funds to levy to every citizen. Now, the supporters of this, on one side, they're saying that we're the wealthiest country in the world by far,
yeah,
right? By a few trillion, more than a few $1 trillion. We have, and they look at that from the gross domestic product, which is the amount of money that you make internally within your borders. They look at it. We have the lowest tax rate, tax base, lowest tax rate, but the largest tax base of all modern developed countries. Right? We have the most billionaires in the world. We have the most millionaires in the world. Right? With all of that, though, we have the largest wealth gap.
Wow.
From between the Chinese and between the French and between the Spanish and between all the other the British, all the other developed countries. So they're saying that there's a need for something like this, and saying that we can figure out how America can figure out how to get this done. Now, on the side B to that is, people who say, "Nah, this is not going to work." Number one, you have to think about consumerology, right? What do people, how do we as Americans spend our money?
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of different entry points into that argument, right? Some people say we spend cavalier. We're very cavalier with our spending. And some people say, well, we're very cavalier with our spending because of the economic system that we were born into. We're trying to figure this thing out and rob Peter to pay Paul and living check to check. In fact, there was a recent study that said 80% of Americans, which really says 80% of the respondents of this study, that 80% of them said they live check to check.
Yeah.
And so with that, there's, again, that goes to the need. But folks that say that this isn't going to work, is you talk about consumerology, spending habits. Also, where's the money going to come from, right? Who's going to pay for it? And so it's an interesting idea. That there's an article and a video on The Atlantic, theatlantic.com, which is a phenomenal publication. They talk about it even more. But what's even crazier and even more dope, so to speak, is actually being piloted. And guess where? I'm gonna give you 3 guesses. Go on, guess where it's being piloted at.
3 guesses.
I'm
gonna take it in one.
You gonna take it in one?
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and say California.
Yeah, absolutely. California is with the most liberal, one of the most, if not the most liberal state in the union, and so it's very apropos that they would do this, right? And so I forget the name of which city it is, but there's a city there in California that's piloting this universal income, basic income idea, right?
So my thought to all of this, I think this universal basic income is a great idea. I think about it, I liken it to when you're working and you get merit increases.
Okay.
Or you get your cost of living adjustment. Usually companies will do a slight cost of living adjustment annually, and that be the most raise anybody would get that year, right? So it might go up 5%, 10%. You might see it in your check. You might not even think it's important, but those increases are important because they're trying to make sure they are at whatever the national average is. I liken it to that, and I see it as something that people could look to in maybe. Because usually people, look for pay in their income tax return, right? Maybe it's something where that would help people in income tax. Maybe it's something, I don't want to say a credit because people want the cash, right? But something that, could possibly be inputted in that type of mathematical system where it's like, okay, well, you have an allowance of $1,200 this year. And that money can be given to you or can be put toward some form of a debt, but that, it's something that people are actually in need of. And it may not be, like you said, it's not going to be, living wages because we still people need to live, right? Mm-hmm. And of course you have billionaires that are willing to fund and trial this in California, but it's going to test test how people actually spend, but it also is going to help people spend. I think it's going to help more people spend more consciously, knowing that they have an opportunity to get this extra money. I'm thinking that's why I was talking about it would be great if people could use this or this becomes such a standard that we actually modify educational systems based upon teaching people how to be better with the monies so they can invest it in the right things. Not to say it takes away all the fun, but just so they can just have an opportunity to invest in, other things and possibly be able to get where they really want to be.
Yeah, and when you talk about that investment in education, I think it's important to do that, because there's a different expanded conversation with that, right? Investing this in education, but making sure that the students understand and know the importance of financial education and how to really do it, right? I think it's really, really important. So this is something it's going to be interesting to watch, because they're piloting it. Again, you mentioned it, and there's some co-founders of Facebook who are funding it, but it's not for the whole city. It's only for 100 people who are randomly selected. So look out for that and follow that.
Absolutely. Okay, here's another story, and I hate stories like this because it really is sad, but it's something that needs to be addressed. We heard about, or many of you may have read about, what's going on with this Pennsylvania trial, specifically about the Catholic priest who abused over 1,000 children. Now, this seems like, oh my God, 1,000 children. How is this possible? Well, we know it's possible, and it's not just a Catholic thing. I am a person of faith, and I believe that, when your belief system dictates how you treat people. But this sexual perversion that's happening within many religious places, in churches and synagogues, and, when people go to these places, they're going there as a safe haven. They're not going or entrusting you to treat their children or family members any type of way. And when I hear these stories, it really just hurts my heart, because there's so many people that have distrust for the church, and many times they have distrust for the church for this reason, and they don't talk about it, right? I know in different communities it's addressed differently, right? But this is so sad. 1,000 children, and I'm sure there's more than that, and not just in Pennsylvania, right? Because this is not just a Catholic issue, but I brought this article out because Catholic priests abused about 1,000 children. This is not just, this is not an isolated, localized issue. We've heard these stories so many times. I know people who have mistrust for the church because of something someone as a leader in the church did to them. I know that people, have walked away from church because it was like, I don't get down with such and such. I know people that don't trust the church because who they feel like the leadership is representing is not representative of the God that they believe in. So it's so many layers to it, but I just wanted to use this article as a PSA. It is time for us to stop playing. You know what I mean? Like, it's time to stop playing around, saying one thing and doing other things, and confusing people wwho really just want the healing. You see what I'm saying? They really just want the relationship from the Lord, or whatever God they serve. It's time out for this.
It is, man. It is, and the article was saying that this report that this investigation has been going on for a number of years.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are we going to do about it? That's the thing, because it seems like, I'm not Catholic, I'm not pouring on the Catholic Church, but it seems like the Catholic Church is above the law oftentimes in getting away with this thing. And so what are we going to do? What policy are we going to implement? They just switch the priests, they switch their parish. Sometimes they just fire them, but there's no criminal charges. And but it even happens in other denominations as well. You know what I'm saying? In the Baptist, in the Church of God in Christ, Lutheran, whatever it happens. And so, what are we going to do about it from a preventative legal standpoint? This is where I am, because we know, like, it's not new. Like, this 1,000 thing is like
the number is probably very small compared to how many people it has affected, not just in this church, but in a lot of churches. Yeah. And we have to think about it, like you said, what are we going to do? And it's not just priests that are above the law. It's a lot of religious leaders that are above the law. And it seems, and I know there's a protection there, where people do. They try to reconcile, like, oh my gosh, this person is a person of faith, so that a lot of times they don't do anything. I've seen this is a bad comparison, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there. I've seen a few episodes of Law and Order where this has been the case, where now you're trying to prosecute a person of faith, and they try to go through that whole psychological perspective of how the victim feels and why they feel that way, and whether or not they're going to press charges, because they're trying to reconcile what happens. And then you also have somebody that steps in and is like, but you did this to my child, so you're no longer who I think you are. And it tears away at people's genuine desire to just really connect to a higher being, because you being the person that they thought was charged over their life as the person walking on this earth has mistreated that trust. And so I don't necessarily know how law enforcement fixes that. I would hope that they fix it the same way they fix it any other sexual predator, and not give too many passes to persons who say that they are representative of a higher being. Like, I really would hope that they deal with it all the same, because you are affecting people's lives by being out of order. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I just really, like I said, that's not a Catholic thing. It's all religious leaders thing. It's all sexual predator thing. But when you talk about churches and you talk about the faith that it takes to believe in something, and when people come to you, they're coming to you honestly because they want the connection, but they're not looking for the man's connection. So it really is troubling, and we have to do better as a society to hold everybody accountable. Now, let's end on a good note. Let's end this conversation on a good note. This is something about happening in rural Alabama. Now, I know you and I have had some experience going through some rural towns, and we also have experiences avoiding rural towns because we heard some problematic reports, and we didn't want to be caught in a shuffle with that. But in rural Alabama, they just had their first integrated school in Sumter County.
Right.
I think that's amazing. But it's 2018, y'all.
It's amazing, and it's scary.
It's scary. So this is the first time it happened in rural Alabama, but it's 2018. So that just lets you know that when we see all this, the talking heads and the dialogue that happens on your CNN and Fox News and all this stuff, and people say, oh, well, we're all thinking the same way. No, we're not, because what I believe is not necessarily the base or the perspective of what some other people are talking to. There's some people that actually believe that that should never have been happening.
And see, that's where you're so correct, because I don't want to make it look like Sumter County or Alabama has sanctioned if they're not integrating.
Right. That's not what we're saying.
What we're saying is the culture there has been such for so long that's just the way it is. That the blacks in this county go to this school and the whites go to the private schools. And that systemic is one thing, but changing the minds and the hearts of the people, that's a whole different conversation, and it's a lot more difficult. So that's what you're talking about, like really that culture down there has been for so long. Integrate. First of all, let's back up. Integration. Alabama was the last state to integrate their schools, the very last state in the union to integrate their schools. They did it like a year and a half later after Roe v. Brown versus Board of Education. But that's what we're dealing with the culture there. Like the blacks went to the private schools, and the whites or public schools, and the whites went to the private schools, right? And there was so much inequity, and there was so much funding, so many funding discrepancies, etc. And so it is a good thing that it's happening now. But again, the people, like the folks who have been the key holders and the policymakers for so long, they just felt like this was like not being integrated. Segregation was the way. That's what's interesting. But I'm glad they. Well,
I want to. As an acknowledgement of progress, I want to one clap Sumter.
Let's do it.
Let's one clap Sumter, because that for that to be so many years later, but they made it this year. That deserves a one clap, because ideally. Several claps.
Yeah, come on, round of applause
around, but it deserves that, because they could have very well stayed the way they were.
Man, that little one clap
right. They could have stayed the way they were, and no one would have known, right, except for the people in Sumter and surrounding counties. And I would have loved to have been an ear at the table to hear what that conversation really looked like, and who really pushed for change, and even hear some of the people really, because sometimes people don't realize, man, we haven't done anything. Like, they've been so in autopilot that they don't realize that maybe, man, we probably should change, because we don't have any problems with anybody anymore. And so it becomes just that you can overlook it. And I would have loved to hear what that conversation really was about, but I'm glad that they did it. I just, cover all the little babies that are in that school, that they're protected, that no one, lashes out on the children that are in that county, because it's integrated now. So that's just a really, great move for Sumter.
It is
a great move for Sumter. Now, I hate to leave, but I feel like we gotta go.
We gotta go, but you ain't never gotta leave me, baby.
And I won't.
Wait.
I love it.
Wait, I'm confused. Where did that come from?
I hate to leave, but we gotta go. So we're gonna bring you more conversation next week on Society Now. We're gonna keep this riveting conversation going, doing it for the people. My name is Kira Laws. You can follow me on Instagram at the Modern Day Cindy. That's Cindy with an I, not a Y. And your name is, and who are you, and how can they find you?
You know who I am. It's your boy Kalen Laws, aka Senior WAPO. That's SENORGUAP. 0713. Holla at me at that tag on all social media outlets. You have been tuned in to Society Now. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.